Welcome back to another episode of the HU and Beyond podcast presented to you by HU Enrichment. As always, for your host is Stephen, bringing you in as always. And this week, we have another guest. Obviously, every week you've been seeing us with a lot of guests related to HU. Our guest to this week is also related to HU, but a different way. So I'll let him introduce himself to the pod. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Hello, everybody. My name is Svyatoslav Venskyy, and I'm a Boiling Springs high school student, currently a senior. And I was an HPC research lab intern at HU in the Harrisburg campus.
Awesome. So, my guy, let's kind of start in the Pacifics. Now, obviously, like I said, you high school student. So this is kind of a first time ever that we had a high school student on the podcast. So, give yourself a round of applause for that. We always appreciate getting our high schoolers out there and on the podcast. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about your career path. So technically, what type of career path are you kind of on right now in terms of what you kind of experience?
So right now I'm on the path of being into the IT world. But what I really want to focus and do over my next few years in college is go into offensive cybersecurity engineering. Try to penetrate companies with their permission, of course. We want that legality of things, and just penetrate things, find what I can exploit, and then report it to them so that we can help them fix it. Basically, do some good for the world. Basically.
Okay, so if to kind of try to dumb it down for the audience, basically your job is to kind of, and you tell me if I'm wrong, basically try to find ways to let's say hack into something or break into something with their permission, so you can see where's the issues with it and how you can improve the defensive of that.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And then for those at home, IT stands for information technology. So in that field, right, was that something that you always wanted to do, or that just something that came up to you recently? Wait, still there?
Sorry, you glitched out.
Glitched out?
Maybe. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, you're good. Because it froze on my side. I didn't know if you froze. You glitched out too.
Yeah, same thing.
Gotcha. Cool. So I'll just re-ask the question. So with your career path, was that something you were already interested in for a long time, or that's something that recently happened?
Depends on this time stamp we look at. I'll say this. I've always been interested with computers and a fascination. I think that kind of just started with gaming, especially whenever I was in even elementary school. The fact that I had a computer was awesome, that I could just go online, play some online virtual games like coolmath.com. I think everybody knows that website.
Oh, yeah.
We all loved it. Especially the game Run. That was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah, I love that game.
And so that kind of sparks it, everything, And I was always interested in computers. And then somewhere in middle school, high school, I wanted to be a financial manager or something like that. But then it kind of switched whenever I had my first comp sci class in, I think, 10th grade. And then things switched. I'm like, okay, I kind of like computers more than finances and numbers, because it could be a boring job potentially for me. And then I kind of made the switch, and I interned for my high school over the summer, and I enjoyed it. It was pretty fun. So kind of stuck.
Okay, so just something that you kind of picked up along the road from the sounds of it, because then you said at one point, I said, I want to dabble in maybe in the finance area, but then you're like,
right,
might be a little bit boring. So then you moved on. So, hey, man, I think that's great that you're kind of just messing around with different things, because, you're at that age where you should be. And it's great that you kind of found a career you really enjoy doing. So then kind of go back a little bit. Let's kind of start at the beginning. So where are you originally from, and how was life growing up for you?
So I'm originally from Carlisle. I used to go to the Carlisle School District, and then around second grade, I moved to Boiling Springs, and I go to that high school now. Born in the U.S., both parents, though, were immigrants from Ukraine in 2004. So I have a lot of that cultural experience in that Eastern European field. Also speak Russian and both fluently, but I wish I had my Ukrainian a little bit more up to par, but still working on that. But yeah, that's my background.
Okay, man. Look. I can barely speak some of the languages my parents try to speak to me. So, ironically enough, I know basic Italian. Because I grew up around a lot of Italians, so there's a lot of Italians and I think French, but French is way harder than learning Italian. Let me tell you that if you ever wanted to pursue another language outside of the two you mentioned. But okay, so you have some really good experience. So you can speak fluently in Russian, basically.
Yep. Yeah, basically. Oh. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So let's now on to that. Let's kind of move on to the next point. So like growing up, what were some like challenges you kind of faced as you were growing up? Like, cause you went to Carlisle for a little bit, then moved on. Was there kind of like an adjustment period for you from going from one place to another at a young age?
To answer the first question, so yeah, kind of there was adjustment periods, especially whenever people had to find out my name. I came up with a nickname for myself up in kindergarten. So my dad's name is Stanislav, mine is Svyatoslav, and my dad created a nickname for himself, Stan, to make it easier for Americans to pronounce. And so I was a kindergartner. I thought I was the smartest man in the world. And I'm like, okay, I want to do a middle name. We quoted it. And I want to be Stan too. So from there on, people just started like calling me Stan. But then as I kind of went through stages, I think probably 11th grade, I started disliking it. I'm like, I'd rather be called by my real name instead. So when I came into like more professional environments, I just stuck to my name rather than a nickname. So that was that. But second grade, whenever I moved, there was a challenge first. I didn't know the area of Boiling Springs. It was close, but I wasn't really like, familiar with it as per se with Carlisle, where my grandparents lived, as well as my aunt and uncles. Moved over. Honestly, I had a pretty good experience when I moved over because I had a really loving teacher. She was like all for it. That like it was really nice. They all embraced me there, so it went pretty well, pretty smoothly.
Oh, that's great, man. I mean, I'm glad to see you had, especially a teacher that embraced you. And I feel like that's a lot of times where students kind of disconnect if you don't have a teacher that I think in my eyes cares. Because there's the education element, then there's like that other aspect where a teacher wears a lot of different hats. So regardless if they want to or not, it just some of them generally just do a better job than others. So I'm glad you had a good teacher that got you on that path. So kind of the switch gears and kind of push it on. Let's kind of talk about high school. So like, obviously, did you do all your years of high school in Boiling Springs?
Yep.
So obviously, how is, high schools in Boiling Springs? Like, how's that experience been for you? Where it's like, obviously it wasn't a culture shock for you, but like, how was that just the overall experience?
I think pretty good, honestly. I love the fact that we had a block system. So it's very, very close to what universities and colleges have as a per semester like schedule. I know a lot of other schools in the area do that as well, except Carlisle. That's the one that doesn't do it.
Yep.
And they don't follow that. They do a whole year of the class, which I think is a downside, especially in today's world. But I like the fact that every semester you have new classes like completely. It flips around, and you get to, in my opinion, dive deeper into what you want to do. So if you want to go further and beyond in a class, you take honors and AP classes, which I got to do with my math classes, and I don't regret it. Yeah, it was more challenging, but I think in the end it's going to pay off. As per other classes like English, I took the regular, and I was completely fine with that. I did normally fine, and I enjoyed that as well, as long as I could. So like I might not be the best like essay writer, but I can sure do math whenever it comes to like the theme of where I need to do it.
Okay. So, and then to kind of explain a little bit for those listening, so traditionally there's two different methods in the United States that we do education, depending on where you live in the country. There's a traditional, you just do a whole year, rather it's a whole fall or whole spring to slash summer because it ends around that same time. Or you do the block system where you always get a new section of opportunities or classes. And to kind of add on to another question for you. So with that system, block system you're in, that was pretty much closer to what a college system looks like, where you get to choose your own classes. For like classes that are higher up, like AP and stuff like that, did you have the option just to pick them, or there were like certain requirements that you had to hit for that?
So there are certain requirements, but if you work diligently enough, it's not that big of a problem. I think the requirements for, say, like AP Calc, you would have to take either regular or honors track of the class previous to that. If you took the honors, you had to have a minimum of 85%. And if you took the regular, you had to have like a 93 or higher. So I didn't personally think that was like, that would be a barrier for if you wanted to go into AP. And even if there were like a problem, say if you're like even 2% down from the requirement, you can always talk to your counselor. And if she or he sees that you're dedicated and you want to actually like pursue this type of like class in your career, then they can make it work out. Because I remember in my 8th grade class, I wasn't doing Algebra 1 at first, but then I decided, well, I didn't really fit in my class. And I'm like, what if I just start doing the stuff that the Algebra 1 students are doing? And I kind of just like pushed myself to do it. And I had my family to thank for that, actually. They pushed and they helped me like go through that stage where the first market period I was in my regular class. And then the rest of the year, I finally got the ability to transfer in with the Algebra 1 students. And that kind of just like sent my mathematics career forward and beyond, really. That's the story for that, how I got into the higher maths.
That's dope, man. I mean, hey, it just seemed like you were just determined to do something, and once everyone's seen it, so including your parents who had your back, it just all went for you. So that's dope to see. And I'm glad you were in that type of system. I've always been a bigger fan of those because I feel as though those in the traditional year-long systems, when you're just getting the same thing, generally speaking, it doesn't stick as hard when you get the option to do it. So
right, that's so true.
That's fair. So let's kind of next topic. Let's talk about how you found out about Harrisburg University. So starting off that, how did you find out about us, and kind of talk to us about your internship experience you had here at Harrisburg University?
So I found out HU through New Paths, actually, and that was right before I met Mr. Gibson, actually, Alex Gibson, at a RILA conference. So New Paths is co-founded by Harrisburg University, and they do technical courses, I would say, as well as they provide the opportunity to take certifications. So I took their ITF Plus class in, I believe, early spring of 23. And from there, I kind of got a few connections at HU, but I just knew HU as a college, more or less, at that point in time. Once I finished the class, got my cert, then I had one of my teachers, my internship teacher at Boiling Springs, contact HU because I found out I could get a transcript and get credits for the class that I took virtually for the ITF Plus, and kind of got to know the people a little bit there through I think it was the admissions.
Yep.
And then I went to a RILA conference that summer in June. And during this RILA conference, we had the opportunity to talk to people in the fields that we would like to go into. One of them was a cybersecurity and a gaming conference. I went to the cybersecurity one. I didn't have time for the gaming one because it was on the same day and just didn't work out. But Mr. Gibson heard me talking to the lady. I can't remember her name, but she was really nice. In the cybersecurity room, she worked for Appalachia. And Mr. Gibson heard the word HU through New Pass or something. And he stepped in. He's like, I heard HU. And that's kind of just like, bam, starts the entire like interaction with HU. And he offered me an internship right in that classroom. He said, if you ever need an internship or anything, like, call me. Like, I'll try and see what I can do for you. And I think it was late August, October. I got in contact with him, and we just kind of started it off there. And then I went through the process of like the application to be in the position of the internship. And then I went to the High Performance Computing Research Lab, or HPC for short, and hit it off in October. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like a boom, boom, boom start. So, and also for those listening, Alex Gibson is the director of secondary service here at Harrisburg University. So, dual enrollment, college and high school, and in the summer, our enrichment programs. If you're interested, check us out at enrichment.harrisburgu.edu to learn more about our options. Now, with all that being said, now with you worked in our HPC lab, which is our high performance computing lab. You worked there for about, I think, how it was like that whole fall. I think you were in there for a couple
It's like
months.
3 months. 3 months, yeah, something like
Yeah.
that.
So obviously, I know personally, one of the people you worked with was a good friend of mine, Benjamin. But kind of talk to me, give me like a general overview of what you were exactly doing in that lab during your internship experience.
So the first, I would say, more than a month was me just straight up learning. It was just me reading and absorbing as much information as I could, whether it be in the lab or outside of the lab. So if I was outside of the lab, I'd be reading a networking book. So Professor Jones, he kind of took over for the first couple month and a half or so, or just month. He focused with me more on the basics of networking, so I can build a foundation on that to then go into my interest, which was cybersecurity and hacking and stuff like that. So he gave me a PDF of a ebook, and he said, "I want you to read this in 4 hours or 3 hours." I was like, "Okay, but how? How am I supposed to read all this content?" And he said, "Don't read it, just skim it." And he said, "I want you to, like, by next week, come back here, and you should have at least read it like twice." And that was a shocking like moment for me. Like, how do you read? How do you skim read a book? Like, personally, I was taught to read. If you're reading something, you're reading to like gain as much knowledge as you can, like in a school or
Mm,
something. And you're reading like sentence by sentence, and you'll get a headache, and at the very end, you won't remember much. But
right.
then Professor Jones just like came out with this new like things like skim read, try it. And I was actually kind of shocked. At first, I was like doubting whether or not it worked. But then after you read a book by skim reading it, like 7 or 8 times, you actually kind of remember the topics that are covered in it. So that was like a weird educational moment for me that like during my internship, first I had to learn more. And the way I learned it was completely different from what I was like taught in high school. So that was a really cool experience. And then I had Aditya help me out with like coding, and Python was what I started to code on. Got an ebook for that as well. Didn't read it like skim reading it though, because you can't really do that with when you're trying to follow along the coding and stuff. But it was a pretty good experience, and Ben was always helping me out in the HPC lab whenever I was there on campus. I had Python problems, and yeah, he was always helpful and really nice guy.
Oh, look at Ben being a nice guy. You know, I
Yeah.
can't say much for me and him though. He's a pain in my behind, but I love him though. It's okay. He knows this already. I literally just saw him before I did this. Started this recording, so he says hi too. Um,
That's
or
nice.
yeah,
Say
you
hi
know,
to him later.
yeah. He's right above me because we're like he's on the 13th floor. I'm on the 12th, so like
Oh, all right.
I'll see. Yeah, so I'll probably run into him and be like, hey, bro, like I just want to let you know. But in any case, so it seems overall you got a lot of cool lessons from each individual. I think Ron Jones, obviously, he has his own unique way of educating people, and I think also I loved how you talked about how to learn to skim read. I think a lot of people do not realize that's a skill that I think in college, especially, you're gonna need
Oh, yeah.
because you'll get really big books or PDFs more often nowadays, and you're not reading hundreds of pages in a week. You're not realistically, unless you're really that good and have a lot of time. But that is a surefire way of dooming yourself. And I'm glad you got some early experience in trying to get and being a good skim reader, not like just trying to skim and get something, because there's a difference.
Yeah, there is a
But
difference. I'll agree.
yeah, so I'm glad that experience really got into you and stuff like that. Now, like I said, you did this whole internship experience with through us for about 3 months, and what if you had to like say what is like one big thing you took away from that experience if you had to think about it?
If I had one big thing, um, never stop expanding what you could learn potentially, because while I was there, I was given the opportunity, which I very much cherish, that I got the opportunity to explore what I wanted to do. So the very first day I came in, Ron was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I would like say, okay, well, I want to go into cybersecurity. And he's like, okay, what exactly? Like, cybersecurity was really broad, and I didn't know how broad it really was until I looked into it, until Ron kind of showed me like it's a really, really big, what part or segment like would you like to go into? And the fact that like every moment can be a learning moment is really important. And I think that's like the most thing. Just try to get as much as you can out of it. I'm sure I tried as much as I could to fit inside of my brain and all that, but I enjoyed the fact that I had the opportunity to learn from not just a book and online, but from people, and I think that makes a really big difference.
Yep. I agree, man. I always like learning more from the actual one-on-one in person, if possible, than on the online, because sometimes you're not really getting as much info as you would want. Because there are questions that the internet does not have on on the Reddit post or on any type of blog posts. There's some questions where you just gotta literally walk someone through, like, hey, there's a specific part of the code or the specific part of this device that I'm not getting, and I want you to kind of see if you can break it down for me. So I definitely love that advice you're giving. Now, obviously, there is other stuff that I'm aware you're doing some stuff with HU too. Would you kind of want to give us a little idea what that is based on what you know so far?
So, based on what we know so far, we are trying to make a collaboration between Boiling Springs High School, as well as hopefully in the future, very soon, other high schools, and the HPC lab, with the HPC lab providing virtual environments. Virtual environments are basically virtual machines that you can power up. It's like your desktop, your laptop, but virtual. So you can open a tab on Chrome, put in the link, single sign on through your Microsoft account or Google account, and you just have access to your machine. And it's completely isolated. So if you mess something up, they can always reset it for you, and it won't affect your computer like downloading a virus or anything, which is awesome. That's what I used my entire internship that I was with the HBC lab. And we're trying to like not only expose the ideas and the concepts that can be captured within the virtual environments to the students, but as well as the opportunities like showing that like you can go further, and you can like HU can provide you with opportunities that can be very beneficial to you in the future. So we're trying to see if we can push out virtual environments to students that are interested for it, of course, including a classroom, hopefully maybe next year. Still in the process of working the things out. And the club that I founded this past year, the CTC Computer Technology Club at Boiling Springs. So we're seeing if we can get those virtual environments for the students in the club, as well as hopefully students next year in the comp sci class. So,
oh, hey man, that sounds like something really dope. And I think with Alex and all the groups you guys are going to be working with, I really hope it works out. I think it's going to be a really good thing for high schoolers. Because I'm a big fan of high schoolers getting that advantage early of what exactly their career field entitles. Because I personally believe that if you get that experience early, you kind of get to know what you're getting yourself into, so that you can be like, okay, do I really want to pursue this or do I not? So I definitely really like what you guys are doing, especially with the club element too, because then it's like to see it go on from person to person, so that that next generation, if it gets that far out, will be able to experience something like that too. Is always dope. So obviously, best of luck with you guys on that. Obviously, I'm in the loop on that to an extent as well. So when it gets officially out there, you'll see a future post out there on HU Enrichment. But aside of that, man, I mean, I think we've covered a lot. I think you've definitely dived into what you've done at HU. Obviously, I know future you got some big boy plans. Now, career path, without going too much into it, are we still, like, in terms of job field name, do you have any specific titles that you're aiming for to try to strive for in the future?
I'm striving for offensive cybersecurity engineer. I want to create things, to break into things. So like one thing I'm dreaming about actually is like combining AI with the ability of a certain type of computer. It's a Kali Linux, and combining the two to basically have a tablet where you can push a button and it'll just give you the statistics on things that automatically it penetrates or hacks into. And it would be like it would make life much easier for people that are on the job, as well as people who are just getting into cybersecurity and implementing it. So that's one of my dreams.
Okay. So you're trying to basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of reduce that workload on the individuals so they have a more easier time.
Yep, correct.
I mean, okay, man. Hey, man, I hope that dream comes true. I mean, obviously, I know people when you hear AI, they're kind of fearful of doom tooming it because they think the fear of taking their jobs. And I get that. Please don't get me wrong, especially in my field. But I think you still need people to understand how these things work so they actually work correctly. So there's still an avenue for job somewhere. It's just you have to really think about how you could potentially incorporate AI into your day-to-day life or specifically your job life. So I like how you're already thinking about that as a dream to kind of work for the better, not for the worse. So definitely love to see that, man. So I think, well, the last thing I actually, before we hop into a fun little segment is, what exactly would be, in your job field, would also like working for like defense contractors fall into that play as well? Since technically a lot of them probably try to hire people to break in their things, or would that be something completely different?
Here's the thing that I think it depends from company to company. I don't have personal experience with that. I haven't broken into the field just yet. I'm close, but not there yet. It could be both, as far as I'm concerned. Like I know the NSA and and the FBI, and most likely the CIA as well. They have people that go into cybersecurity, both defensive, offensive. I know a few people that are in the Army, and they say that the Army has like a defensive side, an offensive side, as well as just a communications side. So there's, I think, a section or a segment of an office for anybody who's in offensive cybersecurity, whether or not the company as a whole works defensively or offensively towards a purpose. Same goal is there to protect people and be the white hackers instead of like the black hat hackers where you're hacking for your own benefit rather than like the good of all. So
Fair.
I think it could be both.
Okay, fair. All right. Well, awesome. I'm glad to hear it, man. I mean, look, for someone at your age, you think deeper than most people. And I know I said this to you in person, but you do. And the way you talk about your field already, look, 10 years from now, you're definitely going to be up there. So I can give you your flowers now. But now we're going to hop into a little segment I like to call Internet Most Asked Questions, where literally I have a couple of little questions here from the internet, some of the most asked questions of 2023. And I'm going to ask you a couple of them. You can either give me answer or not, depending on if you have one, because some of these are really stupid. But are you ready for them?
We'll see. We'll see when we get them.
All right. First one up is going to be something you probably heard thousands of times. You've even seen on TikTok, Facebook, even Instagram. In your opinion, are you a fan of pineapple on pizza?
Yes, I am actually.
Oh, we finally found one. Well, the second one, but we'll take it, man. Okay, it's one up, man. This is where it gets really really stupid. Now, I asked you this before the podcast started recording. Do you agree that water is wet?
I do, and I have a follow-up question. Do you think that water grows when you water it?
Wait, whoa! That's next level. Hold up. Oh, I want to say yes, but I feel like, man, I'm gonna go with yes, because I feel like it makes sense. But a part of my brain is telling me like, no, Steven, revert that answer. It doesn't. That's where I'm at with it, because it's like, it reminds me of I don't know if you ever saw that whole trend about the dress and the color of the dress.
I've seen that. Yep.
Yeah, like it reminds me of that and some element of like it could be, but it technically not. It just depends on the lighting in that scenario. But I feel like in this one depends on like not the type of water, because like obviously there's various types of like.
It's like if you're thinking of it like a kid or a biologist, like which one are you?
Yeah, like, and right now I feel like I'm more of a kid than biologist. I'm gonna be honest. My brain's not that great.
I think the same way.
Yeah, like these types of questions, I feel like it's just built to make us sound dumb. But then it's also funny just to hear like people's thought process on it, because then it shows like we think deep about stuff when it matters. So
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. But okay, next question for you though. Do you believe in horoscopes?
Gyroscopes. Define that real quick.
So horoscopes is like the basically it rolls around the world of astrology. So it kind of
Oh, that stuff.
so
Okay.
like it really asks you, what are your thoughts on astrology? And I kind of paraphrase it like, are you a fan of astrology or not?
Nah, I don't believe that stuff.
Fair.
I just don't. I heard it's like a thing where it's a theme, like everybody like, oh, you're so and so, you have to have this kind of like uh emotional stereotypes or whatever. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know about that one.
Oh, trust me, it's also into the moon, certain types of moons, or if it's like Mercury's in retrograde, it gets very deep, as I've been told.
All right.
But obviously, if you're not into it, we move on from it because I'm not that much into it myself. But some of my guests are, and we get more deeper into it because they can give me more context because I have no idea about it. All I know is I'm Aquarius. I'll take that and call it a day.
I wouldn't tell you what I was. I don't know.
Yeah, I say, bro. Look, I just look. They didn't tell me that. I just told my birthday, and they say Aquarius. I'm like, for sure, I'll take it. Um, but then my last question really isn't a question because that was pretty much all our little questions from the internet. So thank you for answering them to the best of your ability. Because trust me, some of them get a little stupid. But my last question is always something I leave up to the floor for my guests. If you have someone you always wanted to thank on a podcast, friends, family, anything, the floor is yours to do. So go for it, man.
I like to thank my family because they've pushed me through whenever times have been tough and when I haven't been motivated fully. And I think that's really important that they pushed me to where I am today and they built me the person who I am today as well. So yeah, thank you to my family.
Hey, there we go. Shout out to your parents as well, and hopefully they watch the podcast and are enjoying seeing their son kill it. But first and foremost, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I appreciate having you on. I know it took us a
Thank
while
you
to
so
get
much,
here.
Steven.
Hey, there's no problem.
Sorry about that.
Hey, it's no problem, bro. We were both. Our schedules is like I think one week you had. Oh, are you good? I'm like, nah, but are you good at this day? And then it was like we're just going back and forth for like a month.
Tally back and forth. Yeah.
But hey, we got it in, so I'm glad to have you on the podcast, and I'm really
Thank you
happy
so
to hear
much.
what you're doing. So thank you for coming on. For those watching us on YouTube, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channels for more podcast episodes and a lot of other fun stuff we got coming up as well. For our listeners on Spotify, make sure you're following the page so you're in the know when a new episode drops. As always, for your host, Steven checking in. Thank you, my friend, for coming in on the podcast. And for everyone watching and listening, we'll see you in the next one. Take care and enjoy your weekend.